Product management is this. I mean, there is no direct route into product management. Like, there isn't a course at university that teaches you product management. Very product managers that I've, worked with over the years have come from IT support, from marketing, from design. I, in fact, have a design background. I didn't study software at university.
Hello, we're Global App Testing, and this is Building Globally, Lessons in Enterprise Product Growth. This is the fastest growing, most exciting podcast in product, and we will be looking at every single angle on how you can grow your enterprise product by talking to professionals in some extremely exciting businesses. On with the show. Do we really need product managers? They move between meeting rooms, leaving convoluted diagrams on the whiteboards behind them. They talk with more jargon than a management consultant on a PII process. And their total output is to rearrange the cards on a Jira board. Perhaps PMs are nothing but bureaucrats, slowing down engineers that they manage and would be better off laying them off. Engineers, throw off product managers. You have nothing to lose but your chains. Today, we are joined by Gabe Agulio, a director of product at Hootsuite, who will be rebutting that outrageous statement. Gabe has held roles at Sitecore and Bloomreach before joining Hootsuite in 2020. Welcome, Gabe, first of all. How offensive did you find that? Did any of those comments have the sting of accuracy about them?
Thanks for having me on the podcast.
So this podcast is all about the case for product managers. And I wanted to just start in terms of the businesses that would most benefit from a PM, right? Where you have some businesses that benefit less from a PM. The business that's going to benefit the most from a PM in the world is going to be a business where there is complexity in the product, or the product is maybe splitting or taking lots of diverse standpoints. Maybe a business where there's not previously been product management logic or framework applies, which could be somewhere where the kind of founder's been doing it themselves, or somewhere that is traditional and not from a kind of software acumen background, where the benefits of sort of design thinking or whatever it is would be felt. And I guess something where there is a high level of information and specialism in terms of the customer problem, because fundamentally bad products are usually formed by a lack of information about the customer problem. Is that accurate? Those are the kind of key heuristics for whether a business is like the most poised to benefit from an additional product manager or a new product manager.
That's correct. Generally, the person who plays that product manager role, they have a key influence or ownership on kind of owning the problem and building a solution, some type of benefit. And then it really it depends on the channel or the medium where their users interact with. Especially in today's world, most things are through mobile applications, desktop, or even in the future, other emerging channels. And then it's been a proliferation of services and things that are offered on those channels, right? Before it used to be primarily web and email. Now we're moving away from that to kind of social messaging, and then now there's AR, VR that'll be coming out later. Those channels change, but having that interaction pattern and how you deliver value in those mediums of those channels is where PMs really kind of, you would see a need.
And I guess from the business perspective, one of the kind of frustrations with it is if a product manager is really good, then every metric improves, right? It's not like one of those things where, we hired this person to sort out metric X and we hired them and the metric X improved. The product manager adds something intangible and holistic to the entire symphony of different business metrics, and therefore presence is actually very difficult to identify whether they have been successful or not in kind of business terms. So if you agree with that, and maybe you don't, but whether you do or not, how then should a business look to identify whether their kind of product managers are adding value? How can a business, from the CEO's perspective, how do they know that the product manager is driving value in the business?
I think if you think about it, it's around just a SaaS business, like software as a service business. You have clear business metrics where, which are lagging, which, are sales, the revenue that's being driven, the net retained revenue, NRR, gross retained revenue, GRR. You have those are kind of like standard metrics, and then you would probably look into activation. So, how well did the application or the area that the product manager owns, how well are the end users setting up, activating, are they creating a habit? So it turns back into user activity. So you can have like leading indicators of how things are going.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are very metric driven. And then of course there's qualitative metrics. So you have CSAT, NPS surveys that you can do afterwards that you say that can holistically improve the product. So you can measure how those things are done. There is a softer element as well in certain businesses where just by having someone accountable helps the perception of the business to kind of funnel, understand, prioritize requests, manage the expectations of customers, right? That's a maybe softer play. But then again, that would come through for CSAT, NPS, and other key metrics. So you have both financial and qualitative metrics. It's interesting. Sometimes GMs are accountable for those metrics, but definitely what product managers do is influence and own, especially anything to do with kind of product user activity metrics.
Yeah,
that I mentioned. You could definitely have a correlation between the two. If a feature's been released and no one's using it, right, you can definitely hold them accountable because they drove it, and then double check into why, what issue they might have arisen. Because not necessarily does one equal the other immediately, but sometimes there's a lag. You start to see customers, start to leave you. There's a difference between the kind of lagging and leading indicators that you can measure.
I have another question before we get into the kind of the bear case, the case against product managers. And I apologize because I think it's not as sort of precisely formed, I guess. But there's this idea of companies that experience product-led growth, or that are product-led in general, because they believe that the product is the key vector of their growth, by word of mouth and by other attributes and upsells within the product and things like that. And that's obviously a very sort of desirable state, because rather than just being able to distribute or just distributing through like more aggressive salespeople, theoretically it means you're making the world a better place if you're doing it through product. If you wanted to achieve that, I guess it's just a case of hiring great product managers. I mean, I wonder whether there are some businesses that are in industries or some kind of products that are naturally more predisposed to achieve product-led growth, or to be able to create product as a leadership department within an organization. I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Is it something that you have control over? Is it something that you can build into an organization? Is it something that happens naturally? And how does that relate to the idea of like product managers as a group of people?
Interestingly, the answer is actually no. So if you are offering a product or service on a specific channel where you know that the way that you purchase or buy can be no touch, basically there's no human in the middle where you need to buy that product or service, you essentially can do PLG. And then what you really need to do is have a deep understanding of the user, the customer, user research, designers. Sometimes they can take this on. You have to have a very deep understanding of data, the data analysts. And a great PM can identify the gaps in a user journey where you could get more, where you could call for or build for certain areas. But generally, the product or service will naturally need that. You could bring it if you've got an existing product or service that's very human-led. So this is one of the classic problems that founders have, right? They have a product or a service, they're trying to like bootstrap, and they're thinking about, do I hire sales or do I listen to the product? And adding the, let's call it the PLG motion, there's actually quite a lot of complexity, and there's actually quite a lot of cost to get it going into good mode, versus just having a product that works for a certain use case and you have a salesperson or humans on top to manage that. And it's a return question. Like, how quickly can you build that into your flows if you've got a pre-existing product? Or you can be building it from the ground up, thinking sequentially of like every outcome that a user has to do and thinking, well, this is the steps the user has to do. That's maybe one first part of the application. And then the next part is like what happens after they've done their first setup? How do they start using the product? Then what happens if they come back a month later?
Yeah.
Which is a different way of thinking, but you could be building that into your product. All this to say, I think that great product managers really do make a difference in making the case of what you should be doing based on what return you're looking to achieve. And it goes back to my original point. Great product managers are very opinionated and should have a really great manager understanding of the domain. I've worked with PMs who came from something like retail, where you have to be really into the brand, what type of assets like e-commerce, like e-commerce in general as an industry, is very focused on like what are the type of user, what are they coming to buy, what are the type of things as a merchandiser do I want to offer them? Do I want to offer them at a discount? Is it for a family? Is it for a professional couple? Is it for someone who's just into sport and they have personalization? They have a lot of other elements that they're thinking about. Then you add PLG or you add that kind of sense to it. You'll understand the space and when in the progression, when in the natural journey, you should be coming back to them, offering them, bringing them back to the product, etc., to drive revenue metrics, conversions, especially in e-commerce. But that could be translated into another product or service. So it's interesting, but you need to have a really great team. I think the other thing to mention here is that you can be in PLG, but like as I mentioned, a great PM manages with stakeholders and makes those decisions through a prior understanding of the space. So data analyst, great designer, UX experienced person, working hand in hand with a strong engineering leader who understands what are the trade-offs he can do to get value or experiment quicker and test. We haven't even talked about experimentation as a kind of function, but there's a lot there. It's a good question, but as you see, it can get very broad very quickly.
I'm going to put on my bear hat now and become a sort of a management consultant looking to let go of the product function or have it greatly reduced. And I just want to hear your response to a couple of anti-product manager sentiments that I've heard in the ether. So first negative view that I'd like to offer is that product managers dilute vision. So some people really love the romantic idea of the founder. There's a million Steve Jobs clips I could quote where he's licking computers and saying visionary things and whatnot. And crucially, Steve Jobs was not a product manager; he was a founder. So as you put more people into the kind of the product vision team, you're going to lose coherence. People are going to start pulling off in different directions. And that sense of vision that was so influential at Apple and has been at many other founder-led businesses starts to get lost. What do you think of that, first of all? And I guess as an associated question, I mean, we mentioned the first PM hire. When do you think it's appropriate to hire the first PM? And what is the impact on management?
I mean, I can definitely see it. I mean, Apple, you mentioned Steve Jobs in this founder piece. Apple has famously never had product managers. They had engineering managers or people who only really understood the piece, and design led a lot of that into product. I think the dilution of vision is real. People can have a very strong vision, and there's a personality where you have to have, especially leaders, I would say, founders, C-level, CPO, CTO. There's someone usually leading the charge that everyone looks to and respect. And they look to not only to drive the vision, but to be held accountable to it and to be, to really be the kind of priority holder. Because what they set as a vision for the next whatever period is that 5-year vision, 3-year vision, 12 months, what have you, really impacts how the thinking is and what the objectives and how the teams go and figure out what to do next. And it's an interesting issue because, you could have a very large product which has multiple markets where you have a very strong vision. Maybe it's a financial outcome, maybe it's winning competitors, maybe it's improving churn or retention, whatever the metric may be. Or you're going to be the number one in the market, you're going to own a market, you're going to launch successfully, get to double-digit growth. whatever it may be. And you believe that your product or service is uniquely set up to drive that goal, and you really understand the persona, you really care about their needs, etc. And that person usually holds it together. When it comes down to the lower levels, you really have to have a strong second tier of leadership to maintain the vision and hold, the areas that they own, accountable, or help maintain that vision and kind of communicate it and have that reinforced. What often happens is that you have a vision, and like I always give this example, right? Maybe your vision is you want to climb Mount Everest. Great, we're going to get to Mount Everest. How do we get there? Okay, well, who's going to organize it? Well, sometimes it's a product manager, or it's a product manager leader. And they're saying, well, okay, for that, we need to do 4 steps. There's 3 base camps. We need to figure out how to get to base camp 1. And the lower level PM thinks, to get to base camp 1, but maybe I need to do this. Sort of in the right direction, but they go off and with that as an input, go and figure out whatever they need to do, which actually isn't aligned to getting to base camp 1 at all. It's gone off on a tangent. So being able to maintain the vision, keep that in mind, really be able to link it back to whatever the objective is and prove out the value is imperative. So yes, I think if you have a very large organization who's scaled out, it's very easy to be lost and very easy to get stuck in the weeds and lose sight. About accountability, the PM's job is to think about what they're building and what outcome you're trying to achieve, specifically user outcome that can help ladder up towards that vision. If that's lost, then it's very easy to then not be able to defend it. You can figure out the reasons why you did it. You probably usually have a lot of reasons why, but then you end up having bias or the area that you own that you feel responsible for.
Which is just a response, really. I mean, you got me thinking there about what the impact of product management is on short-termism in product direction. So, like, I see engineering memes on like forums, and the joke is that they've got some really pushy sales manager telling them to build a feature really quickly for the particular sales cycle, and a real lack of, they obviously want to make that sale in that instance. So a real lack of interest in whether the code is any good, and I'm sure I'm not technical, but the sort of the internal excellence of the discipline of engineering. And then I guess that there's also product excellence and standards. With Apple, I think of beauty and a really kind of just a high standard of design that is cultural. And I wonder what the impact of having product management as a distinct function is on that. Is it just that they are buffers between salespeople who are going to be the most short term, sorry to our friends in sales, in terms of their thinking, and the engineers, or is there another advantage of having a product management as a function against short termism? Is that they provide the vision, or is it more complex than that?
You have to have a pragmatic way of looking at it. Like, great product managers are very pragmatic. Usually they stand between in like sales and engineering. Bad product managers always just parrot back what they'll say. Good product managers question. They question, why is this? Does it align with our strategy? Does it align with our vision? Is it a quick win? Is it strategic? Is it something that we didn't think about before? And you keep pragmatic. Some, often I say no. Someone comes to me with a product request, they say, well, it can go in the backlog, but I'm not going to prioritize it on my roadmap. However, there are times I say, yeah, why do I do that? It's because you have to understand the context of the ask. Is it for the biggest customer you have? Is it because it actually was something we are unaware of? Is it a particular pain point that we hadn't thought about because we rushed out a release? Should it have been a fast follow? Right. And then you can discuss, weigh how valuable is this against every other customer? Does it fit the needs of not just this customer, other customers? And so you have to have that level of understanding and context. Do you understand, inbound requests? I mean, there's a whole industry around this idea management, like that being anyone can have an idea. The CEO can have an idea. You can have an idea. how does that get into product? How does it get prioritized on the backlog that actually someone thinks about it properly, thinks about it with design and engineering, and then implement the proper solution? So the whole process and systemic way of thinking about that, scoring it for value, for return, etc. Feedback cycles, voting, what have you, to get into the backlog for the next sprint to be delivered. But to say all that, yes, sometimes you can be very short-termism focused. Good product managers are the balance or the kind of glue that manages that backlog. I think at the beginning of this call, you say like, oh, PMs just throwing out people moving things on a backlog. That is not all they do, but it's generally one of the core functions that you do have to perform is managing that prioritized list. It's definitely, I think, at that level, it's really expectation management and great communication skills, right? Going back to that salesperson going, look, sorry, it's not happening right now, but we could definitely look at it here because this is more important. Or, sorry, that is just wild and doesn't align to our company at all. Like you're asking us to go after a brand new channel that is a huge amount of work, never going to happen. Maybe you just have to be okay with not getting that sale. And then it's going up to their manager or going up to the CEO and say, hey, look, we're actually seeing a lot of these type of requests. Maybe we should pivot our product, right? So it is that kind of great understanding of type of requests, the context that comes in, etc. That that is necessary for your business as a PM.
I'm going to hit you with my second bear case against product managers here, and I think maybe this is the most common one. So PMs are a natural glut of articulate, professional class people, and because they don't have a direct output, as if I've got my business efficiency goggles on and I'm coming through with the red pen and I'm going to fire someone, the product team is an obvious target for me. They're in the way of my mission of a lean business. So what do you think of that? How do you know when to have enough? That you have enough product managers? How should you think about targeting them in an efficiency drive? Is it fair to have them as a target, or would you prioritize cutting frontline, colleagues of different kind over product managers? What do you think about that kind of efficiency issue?
Having seen it in live and indirect with management consultants, I can say it's sad but true.
Yeah.
It really depends on the product service that you're offering, what your runway is, and all those kind of metrics. I feel that normally PMs can take in quite a lot of, let's call it, pain. So if you are in a that's scaled out, that means you're growing a lot of cash investment. I'm just going to repeat what happened in COVID years. You have a huge amount of investment, your market's going really well, and then something outside of your control happens. The market thinks. When I worked at Bloomreach, we were working in e-commerce and retail. All of our customers, all the retailers, had no footfall. What was the first thing they cut? They cut product and services. Or they just completely started to lose the overall budget. And they couldn't continue to afford it. Even though there was an explosion of sales online, you didn't have enough just like normal part of your business because it wasn't, online heavy. And so then what happens? You have to cut product. You have to cut, to be able to continue to function as a business. And you end up signing using great team members. When you have that type of scale and you have to look at, removing team members, you really understand, what is the length of service? What is the domain mastery? Because again, a lot of it, good like PMs is context. Is it a new application? Was it a new labs project? Was it a type of investment that's unnecessary? Is it critical for the ongoing survival of the business? And so obviously tenure PMs usually are not on the cutting block. Mm-hmm. Also tenure PMs are probably senior enough that they can, accommodate managing the backlog for another team if need be. As a product leader, I've usually tried to either maintain teams together or at least maintain the people who do the work, be it the engineers, designers, even if they are reducing headcount. You still have to maintain a product in market that it requires PMs, designers, engineers. I mean, you can't afford to do that. I think in scaled organizations where there's been this proliferation of product owners, which is what traditionally is just a scrum master role, which is maintaining what the team are doing day in, day out, which I would say are kind of more junior PMs, or their primary focus is just keeping the team moving in terms of like managing the backlog, etc. They're often on the chopping block. PMs themselves who have GTM responsibilities, who have responsibilities for like stakeholders, and so less so. But I have seen organizations where the design is actually the lead person because they really understand the user and what needs to come next rather than the PM. So sometimes you end up with like very strong engineers or designers who actually end up leading the team versus a product manager. So in a roundabout way of saying this is like, it depends on the value you're driving for the company and how much, I would say, agency you have. Like how involved are you pushing for certain elements to happen, for it to be apparent about your expertise and value you bring. I mean, we just, talking about management consultants. They do understand like playbooks of the business, and they do understand like when there is a high agency team who have like high delivery record or track record to either maintain them or repurpose them. But yes, sadly, just look at the round of redundancies this year. There's been in like R&D orgs worldwide. Actually, there's been a huge amount of layoff. Definitely not an easy topic or subject.
My final questions then, they're all about the future. And clearly you don't agree with me. There was an increase in hostility to product managers. But I wonder, we've got this kind of very specific moment where California created the tech industry that we know today. And maybe that dominance will continue, maybe it won't. But what's certainly true is the business model is proliferating outwards. We've also got technologies like AI changing the nature of our day-to-day work. So I wonder how you think product management is changing, whether you think we're going to continue to see product managers proliferate out into non-software businesses, and how you think things will continue to change.
Product management is this. I mean, there is no direct route into product management. There isn't a course at university that teaches you product management. Great product managers that I've worked with over the years have come from IT support, from marketing, from design. I in fact have a design background. I didn't study software at university. And there's this necessary need of not only understanding what like outcomes are driving business, but that empathy or the end user, what they need to happen, provide a great experience, a good user experience. And that won't go away. Like I mentioned, the way that you interact with many channels, with many elements, really changes by demographic, by generation. Right, we still have a very long tail. Life expectancy is generally increased over the last 50 years. So you still have a longer tail. Different generations interact differently with software, with technology. So ongoing, AI will improve and definitely change. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely going to be disruptive technology based. But you will still need someone to help decide what is the ultimate experience or user experience that someone has with a product or service. When is the best time, like solving problems, like, is it even a problem to solve? Is it even the right time to solve it? What are they trying to achieve? Melding that into something that you want to build as a product or a service or anything is where you need to have a very strong, user experience or user-focused centralized mindset. Product managers will come into the mix. I mentioned designers, right? Johnny Ive is probably, you could call him like one of the best product managers ever, but never had a product title because really focused on the need and function of what you were trying to do and helped define the priorities and define what that vision looked like. So it's definitely something that's not going to go away. And it will continue to be necessary, especially when managing or building or creating with people. Even if you have tooling that makes it a lot faster to get your ideas in motion, you're still going to need to be able to liaise with engineers who productionize it, scale it, make it secure, designers who can put the right level of brand and empathy or playfulness inside the application. A good example is like Spotify. Spotify's great application. Use it today, it's now antiquated. An older generation, it was quite new back then. Now, it was an antiquated app, right? But they still try with the channels and the app that they have and years of review. They tried to add AI to make it more playful. I guarantee you, there's engineers, designers, PMs all thinking about when it's the right time to launch it. How do we personalize it? What makes it valuable? And that's leveraging tooling that we have today or in the market. So it's definitely something that's going to be around. I think maybe what will get disrupted is maybe that lower level prioritization or decision making, especially in smaller organizations. Even ourselves, we're using tooling that now with AI aggregates, summarizes, makes it easier for you to do the legwork that a PM used to have to do, like setting up surveys or queries or interviews, trying to find kind of user problems. All of that can be fully automated. We should actually speed up the rate of innovation, speed up the rate to an answer, really have the understanding of whether or not this is making the right incremental step in your product. So, yes, I definitely see a lot of future for product management as a discipline. I do think the way that product managers work will be disrupted.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Building Globally was brought to you by Global App Testing. To find out more about how best-in-class functional and UX testing can help your product grow, head to globalapptesting.com. If you enjoyed what you just heard, click follow on the platform you're using right now. Building Globally is available anywhere you get your podcasts.